Love is all around us. I want to discuss the nature of those souls who have tried so hard to come through in certain ways for certain people that I know. But what I am telling you is that when most of us think of our loved ones, we don't allow for them to continue to hound us or batter us with their visions. Most people are understanding of the nature of wisdom and guidance. And those who come thinking all we do is sit around every day listening to the loved ones come and go, that is what some people are here to do. But some of us are here to talk about the issues that are actually going to help us here. Now, some people will say, well, I have loved ones who have crossed over. Beautiful. We understand the pain and sorrow that can often bring. Others are rejoicing because they reunify on another level. But sometimes, when those souls are in their struggle mode, right? No, they have lifted off the conditioning here. So there's no need for them to batter us with their minds. They are basically trying to free themselves from the nature of what we are planting in our minds for them on the other side of the veil. They are in their comfort zones most often. They are not chilling on the other side of the veil in certain circumstances, but that's where a lot of them go. Most people don't want to hear about the nature of those souls who are always bringing the doldrums on for us, correct? That is where a lot of people go. They continually want to bring us down here on this plane, right? This is the nature of where so many souls go, because I want to talk about the nature of forgiveness. And the nature of forgiveness is in the vision of telling people, we understand why you left us so soon, even if it wasn't your time. Okay, that's what we say for a lot of people. We say it wasn't their time. And yet, we know now, with the visions that I have been placing out there and many, many other souls, that this is more about who we are here rather than who they are there. You see, those souls would say, I want to help you out, not what they need. And this is what many people don't realize. They have lifted off the conditioning of a lot of the stuff here. They are in freedom most often if they can reach that level based on the idea of letting those souls go in peace, right? That's that common denominator for many. Rest in peace. Sleep peacefully, for we are at rest. That's where the majority of souls are when they cross over. And then they feel the passions and the desires of burning to go and wander, right, into other realms of development or into other aspects of who they are. We don't always caretake those souls who are trying to force their way through, right? I have a soul who crossed themselves over, and they say, I know who I'm with, and I know I wanted to say my good wishes for certain souls. What I'm not here to do is I'm not here to guide those souls anywhere. They know they make their choices. They have free will and soul sovereignty to make the choices, just as we do here. That sends most souls a packing who have alternative motives that are not about freeing us from the tragedies. How many people want to keep hearing from the same people that what? Lift us up, right? Versus those who have caused us tragedies. I've had to deal with that, to be honest. But it was literally because of all of the sorrow that I was planting in my mind for their souls or their relatives or whatnot. And we're all there in essence cheering each other on. This is the nature of multidimensional love souls, basically. Okay, so we're always guided by love. So when this idea that love is all around us, it doesn't mean they're following us around. Okay, it means that our own souls are forming from an internal vision of love. Okay, we connect. When you're like me, this is about going in and being able to bring out the wisdom, not going out necessarily. I know how to do that vision and bring it in. That's the nature of channeling, but I'm doing something very different, which is basically an internal vision of guidance. I lighten myself up enough to hear the visions of beautiful beings of love that no longer reside in the minds of many. But maybe it's their choke point of soul, right? That's what some people are saying. This is a choke point. Brenda will not bring through those souls who will not leave her alone. When they come through and they say, I no longer honor our agreements, Brenda says, I've canceled the agreements. You no longer get to have the vision come through. Because I have given so many souls free visions of loved ones and whatnot, that then people start to take advantage of that and say, oh, well, maybe if I pop on for a minute or two, I'll get my soul read. And then they go off. And then it's like the beleaguered visions of souls that are waiting to try and contact their loved ones, right? I'm not a medium. It's why I love doing the visions of souls for souls that are here as well, that are still on this plane. Because it's an honest assessment of what it is that really matters, who we are here now. This is about creating from the present moment. This is about the love of who we are in the present moment. It's about looking around us and seeing the beauty of who we are in the present moment. And whenever we can focus on those around us as loving in the present moment, we're in a beautiful place. Okay, those who have hurt us, yes, we know that. Others will say, oh, it's a working out of soul on the soul level. They already know how to do the work. They're being shown how to do the work. It's about us doing it here as well before we rise into those other visions of, the rest stops of soul. Brenda was calling it the pit stop, but it's like a rest stop, which sounds really odd, but it's more about the nature of those souls who have indeed crossed over, saying, I'm just as beautiful on the other side of the veil as I was here. And that's true. Most people deny people certain values when they cross over. They have their systems of development. Many were saying, I was very much of prayer or of wisdom or of guidance or of love. But love means we don't try to reach out to everyone all the time. It means we don't try to badger people to get their attention. If you have something like that, that's what you're attracting to you in some way, shape, or form. And you have to understand, why am I attracting those souls to me? Are they in my mind, or is it that they are trying to get your attention? Now, if they're trying to get your attention, it is usually because there is some unfinished business. Now, Brenda will say, if it is about being rude and inconsiderate, she sends them on their way. I don't deal with inconsiderate souls. I just don't. I don't in my life here. Why would I do it on the other side of the veil? I attract like. Okay? So sometimes I do have those visions where I'm not the most polite person, or I may have my own ideas about what it is that I create with or whom I create with. But it's also about the nature of those souls who are saying, we're on a level of trying to relate to our family members again. And our family members are saying, I wasn't so comfortable with the last session because it made me feel like I was being watched and condemned by my family. If you feel like you're being condemned by your family, it means there's an issue with where you are in your mind. I know that is where certain souls are, and they get labeled various labels. I don't actually buy into it. I just say, and let it go. I don't listen to any of the negativity because, sometimes I do reside in certain aspects of negativity, depending on what's going on in my life or who I'm around. Because there can be challenges with certain people that we're forced to be around, right? Sometimes we don't have the options that we would necessarily think we had, right? And we're not talking about abusive relationships. We're just talking about the nature of difficult personalities or differences in personalities. Because we wouldn't call any one personality necessarily difficult. Everyone has their own highs and lows in their world, okay? And this is the nature of some souls are very much of a, I just want this to be over. This nature of telling us we're less than. That's not what's happening. They've just been able to take off more of the conditioning than what some have here. This is the nature of where many are going who are in the same position as me, where we lighten our loads, we work our wisdom, we work our guidance, we open up our hearts and we say, who can actually respect not just me, but the places and times in which our loved ones are, who are going to watch this and honor them, right? With a session or with a vision of what love is. So one of the things that I don't reinforce is that idea that people are going to the, quote, hell realms. I've spent way too much time defending so many souls who were being cast aside by people for nefarious reasons sometimes, but others who were saying, I didn't do anything to hurt them, but they still sent me there in their minds. Okay? That's not for you to really endure. Most people don't do that vision. Most people are kind of opening up to the idea of just being whoever they are, loving whoever they are, aligning with those who love who they are, and being free spirits. That's where I am. So I don't take on the nature of Jesus, and that was one soul that I had to deal with, because in essence, it's an aspect of a soul that convinced themselves that they were that soul. And that's what they were trying to say, is there are many souls who are in the vision of I'm channeling this one, that one, and whatnot. And if you're doing it from a high vibration, you get the beauty and wisdom and the sereneness of that vision, right? But it's not the same. That vision is not static. None of us are static souls. We don't just sit in one spot waiting for our families to cross over. Okay, there's growth everywhere, expansion, just as much here as there is there. They have the ability to stay pretty calm and serene in their vision, or they could be wild and woolly in their vision. Now, what that means is for us here to do our work and to think, am I in the love vibration? How many people would question if anybody had anybody to love? This is the nature of where some go. There are some people who say, oh, I'm not being loved by anybody. And we would say, it's definitely not true. Your soul is always there with you. Your highest self is always watching over you. You may call upon other visions or other beings of love from various realms to guide you into those places that will give you a better experience of who you are. Because that's what it is. It's like, who's going to honor me for being who I am? Am I being honest about the deaths of people who come through and say, I did this and I have committed, quote, sinful visions, but now I rest in peace? And how many here say, I want them to, quote, burn in hell forevermore? Right? That's where some people go. And that's why those lessons of love will often include that idea of forgiveness as well. Forgive those who have trespassed upon your heart. And say, thank you for showing me something about who I am. I'm too much into the vision of another soul, right? or I'm too much into another version of who I am, or I'm too much into a guidance vision versus the wisdom version. You see, part of me wants to be able to bring through wisdom for many souls, but that doesn't mean you're all going to get your soul sessions handed to you. Okay? There is a vision of being able to say, Tisha and her vibration is high with Huey Lewis in the News. He's honoring us again because he said she saw me on a show about We Are the World. And he's saying she's beautiful because she cries with all of us there in that moment, right? It was a moment she experienced just as much as anyone else when they went through that process. So it was a reliving of a magic moment. And so he's also in the vision of I'm honoring her for her strength and dignity and not letting those souls who want to come through and just throw the doldrums on everybody again and again by repeating their visions, thinking they're somehow going to get their message out to their loved ones. Okay? It's not about bullying on the other side of the veil. His soul, as Huey would say, is honoring that vision and saying, I want her to know she's just fine. There are several souls there who are trying to belittle messengers of love that don't agree with the religious institutions, because we know it's coming. And it's starting to play out in the vision of East meets West, right? The westernized canon, the classical vision. Brenda is of the old. And she understands the nature that we have disregarded many of those in the East, focusing on so much on the man in the white robe who's been highlighted very lightly compared to the reality of where he lived at his point in time when he was on this plane. Of course, we're talking about the soul of Jesus. Okay, he is not of blonde hair and white skin. In those days, it would have been very much a very different kind of expression. And others will say, I've seen him come to me in the vision in which I projected it out. And that is where many will start to see the nature of why their relatives or their friends look beautiful. Brenda will say that, and she has seen many who are more vibrant and beautiful when they have crossed over than what they were even here. Especially if they have aged, they will often project themselves old enough to be vibrant and recognizable to who we are. Okay, because some people would not recognize their grandparents as teenagers, perhaps, or whatnot. So they come through in the way that is still vibrant and beautiful, but yet recognizable for our hearts. Okay. Not only that, but the love for who we are, and this is talking about the nature of the institutions. We're seeing the ideas of we're working our way into a traumatic period for many souls. And that's where Brenda has been hearing left and right from those who have been, quote, murdered. And we want people to understand that it is okay to be traumatized by soul. It is okay to be traumatized by soul, because others are saying, I am soul and I'm all whole. You are not all there. When you go to the other side, you reunite with other aspects of who you were from different realities. But we are not broken. We're not like aspects. We're not lost. We're just not reunited with all that we are. Okay? So many are saying they're whole, but you've taken different paths in your lives and your journeys. And so there's more to you than who there is here. And this is what people don't want to hear about. So Brenda has to distinguish herself and say, I'm here for people who understand that we're multidimensional. We're not just on this plane. Our souls are not just on this plane. Okay? I have a higher vision of who I am that comes to me, loves me, adores me, takes me out sometimes into the reality of the world, gives me information about who I am in my future, and then I can say thank you very much for watching. You see, that's what scares people off. They want to be either here or they want to go to heaven. They can't imagine a reunification with other souls where then they are watching over themselves. They can't imagine themselves separate from who they are. It's not separation, it's a connection. You're just bringing it out when you do the vision of I'm lightening my load. And it's a vibrational shift of who we are. Okay? We're not disconnected from our highest selves. But if we're looking outside of ourselves for them to be our highest vision, how do we do that? We go and we align with them. Maybe they're masters and they have the lessons. It doesn't mean we stop creating with everyone around us. It doesn't mean we don't go see them. But we get to have different aspects of our lives brought to us that we either enjoyed or created, and maybe we want to work on something else again. We don't need to be drama queens. I was labeled a drama queen by my soul because I brought a lot of drama to the nature of soul. And the reason I do that is I'm tired of people not listening to the masters of soul who are even here on this plane saying, we have issues going on in this world right now on this plane, showing us the problems that have been around for centuries. And this is why people are utilizing this to say it's a broken record. We don't want people to keep killing each other, right? The nature of peace talks, right? If they wanted peace, they would make it happen. It could be done. If enough people want peace, it can be done. It can be done. People would rise into the vision of we're going to stop those who are creating war from creating war. Right? Now, some people will say I'm limited in my means, or, the vision of, how many people are saying there's no way to do this. There are always more than one or two ways to solve a problem. Okay? And it's tragic what's going on right now. Okay? Tragic. But most people will not understand the nature of what we're seeing are the spiraling up of ourselves saying, I love who I am, I love them too, I set them free. They don't owe me anything. I tell my family members, you're free to go. Be in peace. There's nothing in my mind, there's nothing to forgive. All the pain and hurts and sorrows, I accept them. I was part of the process. Even the ones where I felt like I was the innocent one, and I was the innocent one in certain instances. But I also understand my part in it. It's the hardest part to do. The hardest part is probably the forgiveness and then moving into a new way of being and saying, I honor your vision as wanting to lift me up into your heart and say, I love you. I love you, set me free. That's what some people need to do. There are people who I know who are not able to set people free from the visions of my mind keeps spiraling into the tragedy of who I am, the tragedy. And Brenda was one of those. And it hurt me. And then I was like, oh, I'm there again. And I know I'm there again. So you know what you do? Find something different to utilize your time. Don't always worry about them on the other side of the veil. They're good. They've got their own souls working with them. They've got their own visions of high working with them. even if they don't believe in so-called Christ or, whatever, they've got their highest visions there with them. Okay, it gets to be a surprise for certain souls. It's not about they're going to meet their doom again. You see, many people will assume that to be of love means you're loved. And you come here in love and you leave in love. We come here as innocent, we leave as innocent. Most have zero idea about what it is that happens. And so others who are so focused on the afterlife often get different views of it. And then they can get a little high and mighty, perhaps, in their perceptions of what Jesus was, right? No. I'm utilizing trusted sources, right? I went through a source of wisdom that was so strong that the Seth soul was saying I was of honor of those souls who know who they are from a personality perspective as well, right? We know we rise in our vibration because we see things others don't. There are many souls who are connecting to their hearts and their minds saying, I love who I am and I know who I am. Once you get to that place, you've already made it to that place of now I can send that vibration to others. And that's where it can be a little difficult. And that's where most people struggle, to be honest. And so that's why we always say, think about how you would feel if someone were telling you that your wisdom keeper or whoever it is that you deem to be of the high is not there waiting for you. That's not necessarily what Brenda is saying. What she's saying is many of us here are not needing those same lessons because in essence, the books have gotten it wrong. And that's the uncomfortable part where Brenda has to come in and say, there are issues with those visions. They're perfect as they are in essence. But due to the nature of her soul's wisdom that takes us forward into the next century as well, his lessons were definitely tampered with. Okay? And you know who we're talking about. And so it's not that they aren't beautiful, but they're not the whole enchilada for him. And his vision is very much about authenticity being of a high caliber soul. I'm not here to try to pretend that I'm Jesus reincarnated. But that's where there is a soul who is doing that vision in his mind. And we want to honor those who have felt like they were tapped into the nature of that soul as a channel, perhaps, or as a soul that was so tapped into the nature of the wisdom of the words that were written upon the pages. It could be of a magazine, right? Most people are beautiful in their vibration wherever they are. All of us are, is where I go. I don't have to like everybody, but I know that we're all working on various things, and most people will say this is a load of baloney because people are out there murdering people. Quit focusing on those who are getting murdered. That's where someone she knows and adores is constantly saying the murder, the murder, the murder. And it's getting old for her to keep hearing that because in essence, they want to be labeled love and not victims when they cross over. And that is the sad story for many because we keep them there in our minds because it is our attraction to those souls of our love, and we can't help but feel their victimhood as our own. These would be those ideas of empathy or the empathic vision. And what we would say is release that vision, enjoy your soul. Let them be in peace. Let them free themselves from the victimhood that they themselves were a participant in some way, shape, or form. And this is the honesty, and it is the dignity of their souls that is saying, this is the truth of who we are. We're dignified in our vision. We may have certain souls that struggle when they come over, but they soon learn to rise out of the victimhood of who they were and how they got there. And then they want to be joyfully connected again with their loved ones. And Brenda hears about the victory dance that we all do when we do align in the vision of the love of all. And we cross over, we see ourselves as beautiful, wise wisdom keepers, right? Or wisdom holders, right? Brenda holds on to a lot of the wisdom because she knows that it is not for everybody. If you are attached to identities of strength, and that's what you need, by all means, continue to do that vision. If you need to attach to an identity of another soul as being your own, that is your work of wisdom. That's your wisdom to work with that vision. If you are attached to another soul as being your rescuer, then you might want to think about what message that might be sending yourself as you cross over. What are you thinking you're going to be coming into? Did someone tell you you were bad as a child, perhaps? Or is it that there are issues that you know in your heart you want to work out, but you aren't able to for one reason or another? That's the nature of why many souls will come through saying, I never got a chance to work out the issue with, it's another, my cousin, who was feeling intruded upon by me handing her a video that had a session for her related to a love of her heart. And the vision was that she also had another loved one who had crossed himself over. And he's saying, I'm done, I love her, and I've set her free, and she's free from all guilt. And it's like the obtuseness of Brenda. He's saying, I'm not going to challenge her to a duel, but he says, many souls who cross themselves over do have some victimhood in their hearts, but they let it go very quickly. It depends on how many people were continually berating them for doing it, right? And they don't hold any grudges, nor do they hold any like errors of vision. They realize very soon that the errors of their ways potentially, but they really don't look at it as a bad thing, because in essence they often understand the nature of why they did what they did and how they did what they did. And it brings people into a pleasant vision of they're okay. They're just fine. Okay, they didn't have the experience that many planted for them because they themselves weren't in that same vision. So just because you plant seeds of destitution for yourself, which I've done before, doesn't mean that that is exactly going to happen. I know I'm not going into that place. But I know that it's like the hammerhead shark is a strong animal for someone on the screen. And it is a nature of danger for some. Others say, I've planted the seeds for a beautiful animal to reside on this plane and to make sure that those souls never touch Brenda's heart again, right? I often get this vision of the sharks. And it's because I've had a fear of sharks, like Jaws from when I was young. And it's not that they are bad. They are there to help us. It's like realize what we're planting and how, right? But the sharks of the world, they're part of the ecosystem, right? So it's not, she's telling you some of her own ideas about the nature of her experience with the other side. There are other people who will have negative experiences that they're still continuing to create. So for me, I've had my own share of them. And it's because of the choices that I make. And I'm aware of that. And so sometimes you have to say, do different. Okay? But in essence, one of those visions is, honoring of all of those souls that have done that, and quit berating them or labeling them as less than or whatnot. They deserve just as much love, if not more, than anyone else that has ever crossed over. Okay? There is no hell realm for the majority of the people on this plane. That's true. So when you're out sending your messages, they're not really vibrating in them. Okay? But it's for you to kind of wrestle with your own minds and your hearts and ask yourself, why would I want to try and send people there? It's usually a reaction to various things, and it doesn't mean that it's not helpful for you in those tragic or dire circumstances. Okay? Some people do need those tragic and dire circumstances to rise out of. Okay? But the majority of us aren't really buying into those visions for the most part about what that really means. Okay? So for those of you that want to stay and have your souls read, I can do that on the spot. I don't do it very often at this point, because what I've noticed is that many are still continually, it's like losing the same person over and over in their mind. They keep playing it over and over, and it's a return to a painful situation for some, and they just want to acknowledge it's a letting go of that. So that letting go of the pain is a great thing for us as well. Okay? They want us to heal and move forward and have a beautiful life wherever we are, whenever we can. They're not going to deny us our emotions. They're going to grant us all the healing that they possibly could. And they would say, you are internally healed forever. Okay? So with that, I want to say thank you for watching. And remember, stay curious, wise, and soulful. Have a wonderful evening.